The media greatly influences society. They inform people about what is happening. It permeates people's lives by creating their own criteria and opinions. In this way, the media moves the masses, creating different social movements.
For over 60 years, the people of Ambazonia were deprived of such privileges. The privilege to enhance their own criteria and opinion. They have suffered cultural genocide for 6 long decades, but not in this age and not with Undaunted ABC Amba News on board.
You must understand that wars are fought and won in the media. The speed of the revolution on Ambazonia's quest for freedom cannot be explained without highlighting the diligent use of the media.
Franco-Cameroon colonizers, among other strategic moves, weaponized the media against Ambazonia for so long, and they continue to do so even today. The question would be, how much do the oppressed people of Ambazonia need to counter the media rage?
Indeed, how much more is required to stop the genocide? The carnage in Ambazonia didn't start today. In 1961, 1972, 1984, 1992, Ambazonians were slaughtered in huge numbers and help was not forthcoming. Why? Because the oppressor was the piper in the media.
The good news is, we have what it takes to dictate the pace.
Right now, ABC Amba TV is taking advantage of the wonders of multimedia aggressively
to inform the misinformed and disinformed with Undaunted and other revolutionary programs bringing it to the news untold stories.
Most importantly, to win the media war by taking ABC Amba TV into every multimedia platform.
In a word, where the importance of storytelling can never be overemphasized, Ambazonians has to tell her own story, not the other way round.
And like we say it always, Ambazonia must narrate her story accurately. We can do this together, you know, right? You are just a click away. Visit our website at www.abcambatv.com, and the steps are quite simple.
With just a click on the website, you can become a club member with so many benefits.
You can also make a one-time donation, advertise and showcase your goods and services at the marketplace on the website.
That was easy, right? You're welcome on board.
And thank you for opting for the winning team.
From the savannah to the Midland and the Atlantic, Ambazonia has risen to fall no more. Ambazonia rise.
Dear Ambazonians on the home front and diaspora.
Dear Ambazonia freedom fighters in the home front and in the diaspora.
The Ethics Commission of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia is coming out to alert you that it is becoming more and more evident that the former British Southern Cameroons, aka Ambazonians, will soon emerge as the newest nation in the world.
We are calling on all of us to start preparing to receive Ambazonia as parents prepare to receive their firstborn child. Malcolm X said, tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. We are already very educated, talented, and very rich in natural resources. Do all this guarantee a safe and prosperous Ambazonia? The answer is an emphatic no. Theodore Roosevelt said, to educate a person in the mind but not in morals is to educate a menace in society.
Ambazonians, it is time to start planning to restore our cultural and social values that characterize us as a people of good repute. Before our Republic to Cameroon invasion, we were respectful of each other, of the law, and of our culture. We earned our living through honest hard work, making clean money for ourselves.
Our values helped us to maximize the benefits of our natural resources as well as our human resources. Southern Cameroons were serene and clean, simply beautiful in spirit and in the physical. We all long for such a place to call home, and we can make it happen by God's grace.
Our local government areas and counties, are you prepared? Do you have an ethics commission in your local government areas, counties to serve as a moral compass for you? Do you have a copy of the Ambazonia Ethics Code and the Constitution?
all arms of government, do you have an ethics agency? Departments of DSS, HSS, Communications and IT, Education, DHACM, DFA and DEINR. Do you have ethics agency to serve as a moral compass for your departments?
Ambazonians, you need to know your rights by reading the Ethics Code and the Constitution.
Shame unethical behavior and reward good behavior in your communities. Hold leaders accountable. Be the watchdog of your communities and government. See something, say something.
The church, you are the main research center of moral principles with the responsibility of moralizing the society. How effective are you outside the church building?
Maya Angelou said, when you know better, then you do better. Ambazonians, watch ethics for an emerging Ambazonia every Friday at 10 p.m. Amba time.
Exclusively on ABC Amba TV. Stay tuned.
Good evening and welcome to Undaunted, bringing into the news untold stories. I am Star Smart. Let's begin. The Colonial military of La République du Cameroon contradicts the PCC moderator, Reverend Funky, over the Akwaya massacre. This is the caption of the Guardian newspaper published earlier today. Can you count on that? This is scandalous. Team Ambazonia, the Ambazonian coalition team, invites the general public to an extraordinary town hall on this day, Thursday, June 20th. In the year of our Lord 2022. And we think it's important to talk about the Swiss process in depth. When the Swiss stepped in to mediate the Cameroons in the ongoing genocide, it was a marvel, it was history made. What happened? That's what we intend to find out. Officially on January 27, 2019, Switzerland announced it had agreed to mediate talks between La République du Cameroon and the Ambazonians. So much has happened since the announcement, perhaps I should say the good, the bad, and the ugly. Some of those bad and or ugly moments were when the Grand National Dialogue that was organized by the Colonialists in Yaoundé. Another would be the Toronto Conference CDN last year. It was not just the participant or participation, but the intent of the organizers and the resolutions that was published. The masterminds of the Toronto retreat suggested multilateral approach towards the Swiss-led mediation process. According to the CDN resolution published, Southern Cameroonians want Swiss-led mediation process to be multilateral after Toronto retreat. Multilateral? That's the twist right there. Evidently, La République du Cameroon has been cutting corners and avoiding the real platform for real talk. Interestingly, saboteurs of the Swiss-led mediation process, like the AGOF-C, are suddenly finding their way in through the back door. What's happening with Team Act? Who is playing the dirty games? With Undaunted tonight, another important aspect we will be talking about is the role of the women in the Ambazonian liberation movement. Women's participation in conflict prevention and resolution can improve outcomes before, during, and after conflict. But women constituted on average 13% of negotiators, 6% of mediators, and 6% of signatories in major peace processes around the world. On this special edition of Undaunted, organized by Team Ambazonia, we will be preempting the actual talk of tonight's town hall meeting. But before then, let's get the prime headlines.
Prime headlines for today. Today we will be looking at the Akwaya massacre. La République du Cameroon's government apportions crime on separatist fighters. The Ambazonia National Self-Defense Council squarely informs the national and international of the culprits of the carnage in Batem, Borosha, and Yelu. Also today, the ACT, that is the brainchild of President Sako, only shows how the People's IG is building strategic collaboration with other frontline movements. Today we'll look at the ACT, that is the Ambazonia coalition team towards the Swiss-led process, the dialogue, and the negotiations. What is Ambazonia historical and legal bearings ahead of the Swiss-led mediation process is the question we will be answering today. Women, the liberation movement, and the role of a woman in the negotiations process. What is the role of the Amba woman in this liberation? Firepower and self-defense are catalysts for the negotiations. Who is hitting the ground hard? What more is needed to hasten or enhance this process in terms of the home front resistance? We'll be letting you know why the People's IG is stronger than ever. Akwaya massacre, La République du Cameroon government apportions crime on separatist fighters. Reports about the sad incident are conflicting and fraught with controversies, while Akwaya indigenes attribute incident to age-old land dispute, pitting neighboring villages and frequent incursions and infiltrations from neighboring Nigeria. Separatists have denied claims their fighters are responsible for the Akwaya massacre. They blame armed groups operating across the border in Cameroon and Nigeria. This is where we begin the full briefings tonight. I am Onyi Okbala. Smart is here as well always. Good evening, Star.
Good evening, Onyi. The PCC moderator explains that the Oliti people attacked and killed some Masaga Akol people on their farms on the 29th of April 2022, and the Masaga Eco people retaliated. He said the Oliti people then mobilized and got the backup of hired armed men and launched a very violent, inhumane, and destructive attacks on the Masaga Eco people. He said the attacks led to the burning down of houses, during which some people were burnt in their houses. Fellow Ambazonians, ladies and gentlemen, once again, good evening. Over 30 people were killed, including children, girls, men, women, and old people. Some were beheaded. About 5 Nigerians were killed in this attack. It is so terrible, wicked, disheartening, and the highest manifestation of evil that children of the same community should carry out such acts of gruesome murder, manslaughter, and destruction on their own brothers and sisters without any scruple of their consciences, he said.
The member of the Colonial Parliament for Akwaya local government area, who himself is a refugee in Yaoundé, the colonial capital, aka Martin Yogurt, said he had been told 32 people had been buried in a mass grave, including 6 Nigerians. Meanwhile, the Colonial Defense Ministry communiqué in a bid to vindicate the cruel and atrocious La République du Cameroon government makes gross exaggeration, blowing the incident out of proportion. In a statement that reads, heavily armed assailants estimated at more than 100 broke into the home of unelected representatives of the nation. Honorable Aka Martins, where several people were gathered for the funeral of his late brother, and immediately started firing heavily and indiscriminately at the crowd. In the process, they set his home ablaze alongside the coffin containing the remains of the representative's brother before retreating under pressure from defense and security forces, who had just arrived at the scene to intervene. They just arrived from where view and enclave nature of Akwaya. Now, this statement indicts La République du Cameroon colonial forces as the main actors of the gruesome killings. The following declarations in La République du Cameroon government communique in a bid to clean self finally exposes the lies very well. Now, 14 terrorists neutralized, several terrorists injured, and so on and so forth. Such operations are being conducted to find the assailants. Why not just use the neutralize to get the rest? Is a question.
That communique of La République du Cameroon is mysterious. Where did they get their facts from? Following the La République du Cameroon government's continuous schemes to perpetrate macabre acts and place them on the Ambazonian Restoration Forces in order to give a dog a bad name and hang it. The interim government, through a communique issued by the Secretary of State for Communications and IT, Dr. Mungwa, and Deputy Oben Emmanuel Abota, vindicates the Ambazonian Restoration Forces and the interim government of such acts in its own homeland. It says the interim government is defending its territory from an external aggressor, La République du Cameroon. The objective being to force the aggressor state to retreat to the recognized boundaries that separate the two territories. The interim government does not and has never nursed territorial expansion tendencies towards her hostile eastern neighbors, La République du Cameroon, and that self-defense forces under his government have never, at any point in this struggle, crossed their internationally recognized boundaries to carry out any attacks whatsoever in any part or parts of La République du Cameroon.
All said and done, the Akwaya massacre, like the Manfe hospital burning, as well as all other nefarious acts carried out in southern Cameroon's Ambazonia since 2016, have been and remains the handiwork of the genocidal regime in Yaoundé and its cohorts. Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia has been the scene of a deadly conflict for more than 5 years between armed groups calling for the independence of a state they call Ambazonia and security forces massively deployed through the power of dictator Paul Biya, who is 90 years old, who has also ruled Cameroon with an iron fist for 40 years.
Now, before we observe Thibault Naj's tweet in relation to this matter, let us talk to the chairperson of Judiciary Commission, Barrister Tim Mbesia, the Secretary of State for Women's Affairs, Dr. Patience Abiedu, and our news director, Tao Paddy King. I believe they're already here with us. Dr. Patience Abedu, our news director, and Barrister Team Moti Imbesia.
Yeah, hello.
I'm right
Hello.
here.
Yeah.
Why is this thing delayed?
Can you hear me?
Good evening.
Can
I
you
can
hear
hear
us?
you.
Yeah, good evening.
Okay. Okay, good evening. You're welcome to this very special edition of Undaunted, the pre-team Ambazonian Town Hall. Looking at the reactions from different camps, what do you have to say and what do you think could be the possible intention of the different groups who have made public statements? Barrister T. Besia.
What is a specific question?
Okay.
Specifically.
I was asking, looking at the reactions on ground, what do you think could be the possible intention of the different groups who have made public statements? Barrister T. Imbesia.
Public statements on the act or on Akwaya on what?
Okay, in regards to the Akwaya massacre.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I think most of the statements made on the ground are just preempted imaginations. Let's just take it to the scene. This is Akwaya, and in principle, Yaoundé has a government there, represented by a duo, gendarmes, and all those other people there. Up to this point, we have not heard anything from them. Take the second reaction of the moderator of the Presbyterian Church. The moderator lives in Boya, thousands, hundreds of miles away from Akwaya. At the very least, he has some pastors there. But to issue a statement less than 24 hours after the incident and say what he said is just suspicious. It has no meaning. But anyway, his statement does not say that his pastors have informed him. Last but not the least, and the most important, is the statement of so-called the spokesperson for the Ministry of Defense. Of course, we know who they are. We know what Tongfak, whatever thing he calls himself, he is. They imagine things and say. But what the show they tell is very, very revealing. According to him, or the Ministry of Defense, some Nigerians died in that incident. If an incident happened like that in, say, Betua, no, Baturi, and Central African
My show has
citizens
started,
died,
okay?
the next day you will
Okay, the show has
find
started.
the Minister
Show
of
has
Foreign
started.
Affairs, the Minister of Territorial
Please.
Administration there, because that involves the killing of many nationals of different countries. That could lead to war by itself. Then you look at it in the sense of the whole story, whatever they are saying. Amba fighters, the ARFs, have no reason to do whatever thing they are saying. They've been living there with the people. Why would you go and kill 30, 40 of them? For what? Then take it again. They say their story is that there was a dispute between two communities. Disputes have existed between communities for long. That's not how a community dispute is settled. We are all familiar with land disputes between communities. They could fight, but that would be in a farm. If a house had been built on that particular spot, they would destroy that farm. They will not come to a funeral and kill babies and women. That is not an intercommunal fight. And given what we know of the Republic, they didn't just kill, they burned down the houses. They killed everybody who put that in the house. Is that new to us? No. That is in their natural playbook. Why? Those of us who are familiar with this war for long, we hear that community is called Berlin. Berlin has been in the forefront of this battle since the beginning. If you remember, Mr. Choyaba was landing in Berlin with his troops. That was the beginning of the war. So that people have their eyes on this place called Berlin because you can move from Berlin to Nigeria on foot and come back. They believe, I'm not wrong, they believe that if at all we have any arms, they are brought in from Nigeria through that road. And they will have every reason as to go in and punish everybody who lives there as long as they don't surrender the armed carriers, the armed buyers to them. That is the real story. That's what it is. Unfortunately, they are so-called representative in Yaoundé could not even know the story. And he tells a very interesting story that they were burying his own brother when they came. They even almost kicked the cops. So this is not new to us. If we just look back a few weeks ago, Madame Mundi said they were going to release Madame Mundi from Ashong. With her car, how did the car get to Ashong? The car entered the plane and got to Ashong. Why would kidnappers be driving a car to go and put in Ashong? So I think with the playbook of the there's nothing to believe in them.
Okay, thank you so much for your thoughts on that right there. Our news director is here, like I said, Tar Party King. In regards to the Akwaya controversies, having Reverend Fonke blame it on Ambazonian restoration forces and having the interim government denote that in a public letter. What do you have to say about their intentions, really? What is the intention of Reverend Fonke, writing that the whole massacre was based on a land disagreement, dispute? What do you have to say in regards to his intention? What was he aiming at?
Yeah, hello, can you hear me?
Mr. Tar?
Yes, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we'll hear you.
Okay.
Okay. Yes, I think I would like us to just continue with the news so that we get into the subject of Team A, considering the fact that we are starting late. We will have to analyze the issue of Funky um, tomorrow or most probably Saturday. Maybe we should just move on with the news report and get to talk on the issue for today. We're already way late. Thank you.
All right.
Ambazonians have generally demonstrated their frustration towards the carnage, and one of them is Elengue Joseph, who captions a write-up as the Colonial French Cameroon program to wipe out the Anglophone identity in Cameroon within 10 years. Francophones flooding Anglophone schools with their children was meant to completely wipe out the idea that Anglophones in Cameroon are indigenes of the former British Southern Cameroon, aka Ambazonia, and use the fluency in English language of the Francophones trained in Anglophone schools to take over any positions that could have been reserved for Anglophones.
Activist Elangue Joseph says further, he says colonial and genocidal French Cameroon citizens who read common law in the universities of Boya and Bamenda were later trained in the common law section of ENAM and are now bossing common law courts in Ambazonia as presidents of the courts, judges, and attorneys, while the brainwashed and enslaved Anglophils keep on sharing these very colonial and genocidal French Cameroon citizens, enslaving them in their own homeland. Without total independence of the Southern Cameroons, also known as Ambazonia, the so-called Anglophone identity for indigenes of the former British Southern Cameroons, Ambazonia, will cease to exist within the next 10 years. That is the plan of colonial and genocidal French Cameroon, which brainwashed Anglophones are supporting. Like Lapiro de Mbanga used to say, Momo de laf ndiba dikari yi di go. Enslaved Anglophils cheering their own extinction.
In conclusion, he says Ambazonians join the Ambazonian people interim government under our focused President Sako and fight for total independence. Otherwise, we shall cease to exist as a people in 10 years' time and continue to live in perpetual slavery in our homeland.
On another very strategic report, the Ambazonian National Self-Defense Council would like to inform national and international opinion that on Saturday, 25th June 2022, the French Cameroon Forces of Occupation simultaneously invaded 3 villages, Banten, Mbosha, and Yelum, all in the Nkum local government area of Bui County, northern zone of Ambazonia, and abducted over 7 unarmed innocent civilians whom they whisked off to Tadu, a village hosting their military base, and later on had 5 of the victims brutally executed and their corpses thrown into a nearby bush. The mirthless executionists placed some guns on the lifeless bodies as a lame ploy to hoodwink the international community to believe as genuine the naked lie that the said victims were Ambazonian fighters. Some of the victims, including women and children, were subjected to unquantifiable torture and later on released after huge sums of money had been paid as ransom.
This self-defense council underscores the fact that none of these victims of French Cameroon military barbarism was an Ambazonian fighter, and that none of them was found in possession of a gun or an arm of any sort. This gruesome massacre of innocent Ambazonians falls within the context of the genocidal killing of innocent Ambazonians, in which about 50,000 lives have been brutally ended. These acts of ignominy constitute war crimes and crimes against humanity and are being committed throughout Ambazonia on a daily basis and with impunity. The Ambazonian National Self-Defense Council calls on the United States Department of State, the United Nations Security Council, the United Nations High Commission for Human Rights, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, International Crisis Group, and all governments, NGOs, and IGOs committed to the course of building a just, harmonious, peaceful, and free world on the pillars of the fundamental rights and freedoms enshrined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, to investigate meticulously and bring the perpetrators of these heinous crimes to the justice, or bring justice to them.
These acts of terror, the scale notwithstanding, will not in the least deter the Ambazonian Restoration Forces, ARF, and the Ambazonian people from continuing to resist and defend themselves from a tyrannical, oppressive regime that has treated them as subhumans for 6 decades and counting. We will not waver, we will not capitulate, we will fight on for our inalienable rights to freedom, dignity, and independence. And we will prevail. Victory is sure. We will get into the focus of today right after this break.
Before we delve into the discussion properly for today, let us take you down memory lane. How the People's Interim Government has been forerunner of building strategic collaboration with other frontline movements such as Dr. Sako, especially since Dr. Sako took over office. Star Smart, what do you think?
That makes two. Bo Herbert, who is a beneficiary of President Sako's grandeur and wisdom, made a statement on Twitter ahead of tonight's town hall that has provoked Ambazonians across the board. But before we even get to that tweet, let's get some facts started. As the legitimate government of the peoples of the southern Cameroon's Ambazonia, The interim government, led by His Excellency Dr. Samuel Ikome Sako, has led the way in seeking strategic collaboration with other frontline movements in our collective effort for the liberation of our homeland. From his election as acting president in early 2018, after the abduction of Sisiku Julius Ayuk-Tabe, his administration has reached out to all the liberation movements seeking common ground on core principles, especially when it comes to our diplomatic efforts. This is in direct response to the calls from the international community for a negotiated solution to the ongoing war based on examining the root cause of the conflict so as to seek a lasting solution.
Driven by his desire to seek greater collaboration, the interim government was at the forefront of the creation of the Southern Cameroon's Leadership Council, SCLC, during the All Southern Cameroon's People's General Conference in Washington, D.C. that held in March 2019. The conference was attended by the interim government of Ambazonia, the Southern Cameroon's National Council, Southern Cameroon Civil Society Consortium, Public of Ambazonia, the African People's Liberation Movement, and the MORISC, M-O-R-I-S-C. It was at this conference and under the leadership of His Excellency Dr. Samuel Ikome Sako that the foundation for strategic collaboration was finally established, with Switzerland having emerged in later 2019 as a mediator for peace talks between Ambazonian nationalists and the Cameroonian government. The importance of an umbrella platform mandated by the Southern Cameroon's Ambazonian people to seek a negotiated and just solution to the ongoing war became even more apparent.
It is in this light that on 22nd September 2019, interim government led by His Excellency Dr. Sako Ikome Samuel brought together leaders and representatives of 10 Ambazonian nationalist movements to create the Ambazonia Coalition Team Act. On Team Ambazonia and a joint platform for negotiations with the Cameroon government, Act, also referred to as Team Ambazonia, is made up of 10 stakeholders: Frontline Group, AIPC, APLM, FSCW, MORISC, IG, the interim government, SCARM, SCAPO, SCNC, ROA, ROAN, civil society, and independent persons. ACT was founded after extensive consultations with various political, self-defense, and civil society groups in the homeland and the diaspora. Committed to finding lasting, just, and a permanent peaceful solution in the war in Ambazonia, the Ambazonian Coalition Team has therefore continued to be the main entity representing the interest of Ambazonia with the international community as we move forward. Pursuant to its mission, ACT is committed, under the leadership of the interim government, to working with all like-minded movements, groups, individual stakeholders, civil society groups, and nation-states who believe in its mission of rights to statehood and sovereignty. To that end, ACT has been pursuing these sacred engagements to return the former United Nations Trust Territory of the Southern British Cameroons, also known as Ambazonia, the former Trust Territory of British Southern Cameroons. ACT's mandate is therefore to build, strengthen, manage, and prepare for negotiations with La République du Cameroun towards finding a peaceful solution to the ongoing war in Ambazonia.
Meanwhile, the interim government has been very aggressive on the diplomatic front and has registered great successes. These engagements directly led to the creation of ACT, based on the recommendations of the international community through organs of the United Nations, African Union, European Union, United States, Great Britain, and several civil society organizations seeking a peaceful negotiated settlement to the ongoing war. With a strong and relentless leadership of the IG, the international community has concluded that ACT has the mandate of the Ambazonian, therefore pushing the Cameroon government to duly constitute herself for real negotiations via the Swiss process. Through the combined efforts of these frontline movements, access to internal and external expertise in collaboration with friends of Ambazonia around the world, and through consultation with the people of Ambazonia, ACT has been judiciously lobbying and pushing the international community for the full recognition of Ambazonia as a nation amongst nations in the world.
In this respect, and under the leadership of the interim government, ACT has put out several relevant communiques since its founding on critical matters affecting the struggle. These statements can be found on the official ACT website, ambazoniacoalitionteam.org. As an effort to keep Ambazonians abreast of the work that ACT has been carrying out through various channels, including its website and Facebook page, the Ambazonian Broadcasting Television, ABC Amba TV, The People's Voice, has also been hosting discussions, debates, interviews, and analyses of the struggle with not only leaders and members of the frontline movements in ACT, but also with other stakeholders, including our sympathizers and international partners. It must be noted as well that it has always been a policy of the interim government under His Excellency Dr. Samuel Ikome Sako to maintain an open-door policy towards the strategic collaboration for all genuine liberation movements fighting to free our country, so that we can leverage on collective strength and make our journey to Boya shorter. The interim government is therefore calling for all those movements and stakeholders who have not yet joined Team Ambazonia to reach out so that we can continue to push forward towards our liberation. With this, you can actually see for yourself that Team Ambazonia is the brainchild of Dr. Sako. Herbert Bow's claim on Twitter is not only hypocritical, it is just more than that.
All right, before we continue, let's find out the thought of our analyst this evening, Barrister Timothy Mbesia, Dr. Patience Abiedu. I'm sure that you're there. All right.
I am here.
Well, here.
Before we continue, now, according to Herbert, he made a statement, and I'll read that out to you. He says, hang out with us Saturday at this fireside chat for fresh calls to action, update of what's next, revelation on why Sako-led IG is out of ACT, while ACT meeting in Washington with Swiss mediator and US partners excluded Sako, and lots more. Now, before that as well, we also have had Thibaut Naj's tweet, where he says Cameroon government blames separatists, separatist blames government. Bottom line, at least 30 villagers slaughtered. To the victims, does it matter who killed them? Dead is dead. We're having two ideas here. Barrister Mbesia, you want to air your thought on this?
Let me start from Nash. What he said, people are dying. No matter who kills them, death is death. That's the key word to take from it. And it is because people are dying both ways that the Swiss-led initiative is absolutely important, because we must end it. We have to end the killing. Either way, the death must end, the suffering must end. I can only end on the negotiation table. And so Nash is right, whatever thing he says there. That's the only relevance. Otherwise, Nash being out of the administration almost 2 years has no more relevance. He can advise us, but he's no longer in office. That's that. Then let us go now to the fireside kick or whatever thing they call it. It's something laughable because it looks as if the people writing those things don't even understand the role of ACT. ACT was not meant to launch some other takeoff from something. No. ACT was meant to prepare for negotiations. ACT was created thanks to Sako, President Sako. That's a fact. ACT did not go to Switzerland to contact the Swiss. The Swiss did not come in at the invitation of ACT. No. It was just due to the wisdom of President Sako that he created act for purpose of bringing even the irrelevant into the process of negotiations. So they don't say, well, had I been there, I would have proposed something. Can negotiations go on without act? 100%. They don't need act to do negotiations to end the battle. No, act is not necessary. It has never happened like that. Why are there negotiations in the first place? Before I get there, let us take it back to history. Remember, the struggle has been going on for 30, 20 years, since 1993, AAC. They believe in the force of argument, not the argument of force. Fast forward, came 2016. The teachers and the lawyers were demonstrating. They still believe in the force of argument, not, not force. Then, again, go to 2018, 2019. Before 2018, the people, the SCNC, the consortium had been banned and they moved to Nigeria. Why in Nigeria they created the, the, the council? They did not also believe in fighting. They believed in diplomacy. That's why you find something that was done called Folly Hawk and all those type of stuff. The last trip of Sisiku here in December 2008, a lot of money was raised, not to buy arms. The money was raised for diplomatic purposes. When Paul Biya declared the war and saying that they will subdue us within days, there was no army fighting him. He just thought that these guys would run into the bushes. The demonstrators would run into the bushes. Paul Biya had never imagined a fight because he didn't see one coming. So there was never any war. And so they are talking about negotiation now. It is because there's war. If they want to negotiate, there is war. They are trying to end the war. They are going to negotiate with the people sponsoring the war. The fighters in the ground are not just fighting from the moon. They are fighting under the command of somebody. And so that is the bottom line. Ours is not the first negotiation. Remember that this Swiss thing has been going on for a long time. People came in and went out. People gave their own versions of the story. But the bottom line is this. As we are told, it is correct. The negotiator is the Swiss government. It is not an easy thing diplomatically. It takes a lot for the Swiss government to send its foreign minister or a whole delegation to board a plane and go to Yaoundé. A lot of diplomacy goes into that. And that has happened not once, not twice, more than that. To show that the initiative is alive. These people thought that they could challenge it, have realized that it's not going to go anywhere. Just 9, 10 months ago, there was this thing called Toronto. Toronto, they say, well, it was not living, but if you had to be alive, they should hand it over to the CDN. It is almost 10 months, almost a year today, nothing has happened. And fast forward to comrades like Mr. Bo Herbert. Mr. Bo Herbert and a host of others are completely mistaken. Mr. Bo Herbert's usefulness was in the governing council, where he went, he had floated this thing he called Morris and gone there with the idea of having the right to organize elections. He failed. He left and formed Scoop. He went nowhere. The other thing that Bo Herbert still hangs on is something he calls Morris, which does not even exist anywhere. He created Ambazonia calling. He's dead. So why must he be relevant in the negotiations? He might be very relevant if he has some good ideas, but his relevance is not Yaoundé, it's in front of him. He's not necessarily on the table. He's not needed on the table. Let us take the next person, Mr. Akwanga. Ebenezer Akwanga told us himself on video that he had been negotiating with Bankwe in Ghana, that he did not need authority from anybody. Where is he going with the negotiations with Bankwe? Zero. He called a ceasefire. It didn't work. So do we need Akwanga to go through to negotiate. No. And who ever told them that the guy who contacted the Swiss, which have been endorsed by the Americans in the United Nations and other international organizations, would suddenly abandon the guy who brought and tend to some inconsequentials? It doesn't that. Unless they don't know about what negotiation is about,
All right, Barry.
or they know and they just don't want to accept.
Just
It
maybe,
works.
yes, just maybe they
Just hold
know
that way.
and
Thank you.
just maybe they know and they don't want to accept. I will definitely come back to you for the historical and legal bearings of Ambazonia ahead of the Swiss-led mediation process. So please, Barrister, just hold on first. We'll definitely come back to you on that.
Yes. Today, Ambazonians seek access to provide a historical narrative and legal analysis of the Southern Cameroon's quest for sovereign statehood on the basis of the right to self-determination under international laws, which grants entitlement to political independence and to socio-economic and cultural development. This account is motivated by the manner in which the question of self-determination for the Southern Cameroons has been dealt with since the time of decolonization, resulting in yet another bloody conflict on the African continent. Contrary to the global commitment to secure universal peace and security and the adherence by African states to human rights and a peaceful and secure Africa, the escalating conflict in the Southern Cameroons does not only challenge these aspirations, but has also generated a humanitarian emergency of enormous proportions.
Because self-determination is guaranteed to apply unconditionally within the context of decolonization, two important questions needed to be asked. First, why were the Southern Cameroons deprived of the right to sovereign statehood when other trust territories gained independence? Second, are the Southern Cameroons still entitled to assert sovereignty on the basis of inalienable rights to self-determination? These questions entails an elaborate narrative in respect of which this hope our panels this evening will provide for us real answers. But first, let's watch a report on the Swiss-led process and negotiations we made some time ago. Right after that, we will have the commentary. Please stay tuned.
Once again, welcome to the conference. We begin our discussion today with the Swiss negotiations. It may seem silent in the media what's happening, what's holding the process, and the critical question is why Cameroon must come to the negotiating table for a peaceful resolution of the ongoing war in Ambazonia. Now let's get to the talk. In June 2019, the government of Switzerland agreed to mediate talks between Cameroonian authorities and the Southern Cameroon's Ambazonian restoration movement in a bid to end the war of genocide that was launched by the Yaoundé regime on the peaceful people of Ambazonia. The ongoing war of national liberation has claimed the lives of thousands of innocent civilians, with tens of thousands of refugees forced into Nigeria and other countries, millions of internally displaced, thousands illegally abducted and imprisoned, and hundreds of Ambazonian villages burned down by the genocidal forces of Cameroon. This has led to calls from the international community, the United Nations, the European Union, the African Union, as well as countless non-governmental organizations like the International Crisis Group, the Norwegian Council, as well as major powers like the US, Russia, and China for unconditional peace talks to end the conflict. Being a peace-loving people, Southern Cameroonians and Ambazonians launched a non-violent strike actions by lawyers and teachers in late 2016 to press for the legitimate rights of our people, leading to a violent crackdown by the Yaoundé regime and provoking our proud people to pick up arms in self-defense. 6 years into the conflict, with tens of thousands killed on both sides and mostly southern Cameroon's Ambazonian civilians, there's increased calls from the international community for renewed talks towards a peaceful resolution. The interim government of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia, led by His Excellency Dr. Samuel Ikome Sako, has long stated that the Ambazonian people under the umbrella of the Ambazonian Coalition Team Act endorses the Swiss process as a sign of good faith in a pan-African spirit towards a peaceful resolution of the ongoing war. It must be noted that it had long been the policy of Southern Cameroonians under the canopy of the Southern Cameroon's National Council, SCNC, to seek for a peaceful resolution to the long-running occupation and annexation of the Southern Cameroons by the neighboring Republic of French Cameroon. This was demonstrated by the long-standing motto of the SCNC, which articulated the force of argument and not the argument of force. It was in this spirit that in 2003, a coalition of Southern Cameroon's restoration movement sued the Republic of Cameroon at the African Court of Peoples and Human Rights, ACPHR, sitting in Banjul, Gambia, 266/03 Kelvin Ngwanz Gumey et al. Cameroon. At the root of this lawsuit were gross violations suffered by the people of Southern Cameroonians emanating from the UN plebiscite of 11 February 1961 that determined the political future of Southern Cameroon. Therefore, in Southern Cameroons, the ACHPR was right in finding that the people of Southern Cameroon qualify to be referred to as a people. In its 2009 ruling, the ACHPR affirmed Anglophone grievances against the Biya government and recognized Southern Cameroons as a distinct people and recommended comprehensive national dialogue involving the Yaoundé regime and the people of the Southern Cameroon. Since 2009, the Biya government's unwillingness to honor this ruling and to rather adopt violence and brutality in dealing with the legitimate demands of the Ambazonian people is what finally triggered the ongoing war. In this respect, and in spite of the government of Switzerland's offer in facilitating an inclusive negotiation process as taxed by a majority of the stakeholders, the Yaoundé regime has remained adamant and has rather intensified her war of occupation, annexation, and genocide against the people of the Southern Cameroons. In the meantime, the Ambazonian Restoration Forces, ARFs, under the command of His Excellency Dr. Samuel Ikome Sako, has continued their fierce resistance to the terrorist genocidal forces of Yaoundé, inflicting heavy losses on their occupying armies in the past years. Just in the month of May, more than 20 terrorist forces of French Cameroon have been neutralized in their attempts to invade, brutalize and kill innocent women, children and young men across the territory of Ambazonia. Our resistant forces will therefore continue to confront and to inflict heavy losses on the enemy forces until the government in Yaoundé realizes that they must concede to a peaceful negotiating process that will examine the root causes of the current war and seek lasting solutions that will guarantee the internationally recognized rights of the Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia people to sovereign independence and statehood. It should be clear to the Yaoundé regime, now that they can't subdue and subjugate the people of Ambazonia through fraud and force as they have been doing in the past, the only viable solution for them now is to come to the negotiating table as demanded by the international community. Before we move on, I would like to announce that my co-host, Onyi Okpala, is back from her medical leave, sound and strong. Let me meet her so that we can expand on these briefings of today. Stay tuned. Ahead of tonight's town hall, Barrister Tim Mbesia, who is still here with us, we would like to know, in specific terms, the historical and legal bearings of Ambazonia that could be benefiting on the negotiation table, because you just mentioned a few minutes back about the negotiation table. So we would like to know what will be benefiting on the negotiating table.
Well, before we go to negotiations, it's good that all Ambazonians, even the Republic know what we want. Ambazonians have only one key word: the restoration. What are we restoring? We're restoring our statehood and our institutions. Why restoring? Where did they go to? What we're trying to restore, the statehood, was abolished, invaded, and occupied by Yaoundé. The institutions were abolished and destroyed by Yaoundé under pretext that we were part of their territory, that we form part of their government by appointing for now, and all those people to them. That they thought that we were part of the government. No, we are restoring our institutions, our statehood. And let me just take back. Mention the the Banjul 266. This issue was part of that argument case. But the Banjul avoided it by saying that the plebiscite and the restoration and the status of Sankam arose in 1960. That was before the African Union. They could not go back. But nonetheless, they said we are a people entitled to self-determination. Self-determination at law is distinguished by time. 20 years, 50 years, 100 years, you still have the right to self-determination. The scholars yes. The equivalent yes. So that is the status. That's what we're trying to restore. So when we go to Switzerland, that should be the key word. What do you want to restore? Why restoration? That should be the guiding line. For lack of time, that's what it is. And then we should be reminded, let me make this point clear. The so-called 1961 plebiscite was a declaration of intention, because the question is, do you wish to achieve independence? It was not, have you achieved independence? No, do you wish to achieve independence? A wish by joining Nigeria or Republic of Cameroon. Though it was ordered to do that, but it was simply a wish, which wish was never executed. For it to have been executed, they needed to come to terms of the union under 1608-5. That was never done. And again, since we're talking about the Swiss, I don't know this will be on the table. The guiding lines on that Swiss negotiation shall be one. And the principal one is, whatever will be the outcome from Switzerland, we are going to take it back to the people of Ambazonia in a popular vote to accept it or reject it. Because the plebiscite was a popular vote. One man, one adult, one vote. It was not like Yaoundé. We were dealing with certain Ahijo who was not even elected. That's why the Francophones don't seem to understand it in the first place, because they were never consulted as a bloc. So whatever thing comes out of Switzerland or any other negotiation has to be taken back to the people in a popular vote to accept or reject. That's the bottom line. Thank you.
Indeed.
We don't have a lot of time.
Thank you so much for your contributions there. I guess we have a lot to aid the Swiss negotiation process, a lot to bring to the table to make it more on our side and more on our advantage. Anyways, we'll get on with the news. Thank you again, once again, Barrister Timothy Mbesea. Getting on with the news, women's participation in conflict prevention and resolution can improve outcomes before, during, and after conflict. But women are often excluded from formal peace processes. Between 1992 and 2019, women constituted on average 13% of negotiators, 6% of mediators, and 6% of signatories in major peace processes around the world. While there has been some progress in women's participation, about 7 out of every 10 peace processes still did not include women mediators or women signatories, the latter indicating that few women participated in leadership roles as negotiators, guarantors, or witnesses.
Peace efforts in 2020 have similarly struggled to include women. For example, women represented only around 10% of negotiators in the Afghan talks, just 20% of negotiators in Libya's political discussions, and 0% of negotiators in Libya's military talks and Yemen's recent process. One current peace process is led by a woman chief mediator, Stephanie Williams, acting head of the United Nations Support Mission in Libya, marking the first time in 6 years that a woman holds that role.
Continued failure to include women in peace processes ignores their demonstrated contributions and overlooks a potential strategy to respond more effectively to security threats around the world. I hope this is the case in Ambazonia. Well, Dr. Abiedu is here, like we mentioned earlier, and we will find out very soon from her. A growing body of research and case studies of current and past peace processes reveal how women's participation, whether in official negotiating roles or through grassroots efforts, contributes to reaching lasting peace agreements. The vast majority of peace agreements reached since 1990 fail to reference the conflict experience or post-conflict contributions of half the country's population. Like we mentioned earlier, we have Dr. Patience Abiedu here with us to give us more insight in regards to women's role in peace negotiations.
Thank, thank you so much for having me here. It's my pleasure to speak with you guys today on the Amba TV, the voice of the Ambazonian people. I hope that I can be invited some other time to talk on this topic. It's a very elaborate topic, but I will say something very briefly. The reason is that I have to rush to work and we're starting a little bit late. So let me start by talking about resolution, the United Nations Security Council resolution 1325. This resolution 1325, which was adopted in October of 2020, almost 22 years ago, is such an important resolution because prior to that resolution, women were not seen in any peace processes. The irony is that majority of the population, more than 50% of the world population, is women. So it is rather unfortunate that before this resolution was adopted, women were just in the sidelines and their voices not heard. So there are really four main pillars to this United Nations Security Resolution, and they are participation, protection, prevention, and relief and recovery. So when you go through all of this individually, there's a lot to uncover. Secondly, I wanted to mention that in the years since the adoption of Resolution 1325, women have played significant roles in peace processes, in armed conflicts, and in the world. Three examples come to mind, and I hope that I'll have an opportunity in the future to come on ABC with some other women to really delve into this topic, because it's a topic that needs more time than I can engage in now. I also want to say a little bit about Team Ambazonia, which is what I thought I was going to be talking about. So let me say this, that in 1999, South Sudan, I believe, yes, 1999, the South Sudan, that's one example of what women did. The Council of Christian Women, what they did was they worked hard together in what is called the One Lit Peace Conference to bring about negotiations between the Dinka and the Nui people of South Sudan. And from that conference, there was water sharing peace agreement, there was grazing agreement, there was fish agreement. That's one example in Africa. The second example has to do with Liberia in 2003, where Christian women and Muslim women, after the decade of brutal conflict in that land, they formed a human barrier. This is Christian women and Muslim women working together, barrier at the president's home, preventing anybody from leaving until a peace agreement was reached upon. And then finally, another example has to do with what happened in the Philippines in 2014, where the 45-year war concluded with women taking part as key negotiators. So those are some three examples, and I'm sure when we come on your show on the TV later on, we can really delve into this. But I'm going to take another turn and talk about Team Ambazonia. I know you didn't ask me that question, but that's what I came here to talk about. I am a member of Team Ambazonia, and I really want to, I don't want to comment Comrade Bo, I don't know why I should call him Comrade, on Mr. Bo tweet. I would probably ask the people of Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia to wait and hear what he has to say in terms of why the IG was kicked out of Team Ambazonia, as he claims. But let me say this. The interim government is not a group. The interim government is a government. That's one thing we need to clarify. Number two, we are continuing the government of Augustine Ngomjua, and that's why we are where we are today. It's a continuation of that government. From 1968 to 2007, we just found ourselves that we got decolonized by La République du Cameroon. And after Sissoko Ayuk Tabi proclaimed that we have reclaimed our nation, we are here now fighting to get that recognized by the international community. And that's where the Swiss process is important. That's why international mediation is important. I want to say that in September of 2019, when Team Ambazonia was created, by the way, just one simple definition, we need to clarify something. What is a coalition? When you go to the dictionary and look at the meaning of coalition, it says a group formed when two or more people, factions, states, political parties, militaries, or other parties agree to work together, often temporarily, in a partnership to achieve a common goal. So what is that common goal that we are trying to achieve? We are trying to achieve the fact that La République du Cameroun and Southern Cameroons need to talk about the terms of separation. We want to negotiate our terms of separation. Remember, we've already declared that we are a nation. So that is already a firm belief of most Southern Cameroonians. So let me take you back to the number of people that made this agreement on the 22nd of October 2019. Team Ambazonia at that time, which I think you've already mentioned, but I like everybody to hear again. Team Ambazonia at that time had 10 groups, and I do not consider the interim government as a group, so I would say there were 9 groups, including and the interim government, making it 10 people that came together. There was Ambazonia International Policy Commission, AIPC. Now, let's ask our question, where is AIPC today? What are they doing for the struggle, or what have they done since then for the struggle? We see only the interim government on the ground funding our restoration forces and taking care of the refugees and the IDPs. The next group is African People's Liberation Movement, APLM Sukadev. Barrister Tim already talked about Akwanga, pardon me, Dr. Akwanga. What is Sukadev doing? What is APLM doing as far as our struggle is? Nothing. They at one time made some agreements with La Republique and gave them permission to do the reconstruction that they did. And that was something that was a total violation of the people, because you cannot be giving permission to a people that has assimilated you, that has deprived you of human life, that has killed your people, telling them to reconstruct a land. So is that because you believe in one Cameroon? That's a conversation we have to have with Dr. Kwanga. Number three,
all right,
Federation of
Dr.
Southern
Patience. Please, before you
Yes.
continue, there's this point that I've been waiting for you to hit on. And that's the point where I want to find out. So far, you've been with the interim government led by Dr. Samuel Ikomesaku. Do you think that the women have been given enough chance or opportunity in their negotiation process so far?
Oh, at this point, we have not really gone that far. We've not even have what they call the first talk, first face-to-face talks. So this is still pre-negotiation process. And what the women have had the opportunity to do is what is called capacity building, where women are trying to bring together other women that have the same aspirations. Like Team Ambazonia, which is a team of movements and the IG trying to work for this purpose. We have women groups that are coming together to find out what we want as a woman. For example, I'll give one example. There's no woman out there that supports kidnapping for ransom. So are all these women groups able to come out and make a statement that we denounce kidnappers and kidnapping for ransom? That would be one good thing that shows how we can collaborate. So to answer your question, these are still preliminary times. The negotiations hasn't gone far along, but you can be assured that when the time comes, the women that are on the ground, that are bearing the brunt, not most of us in the diaspora, the women on the ground, there are women there that will be opportuned to sit on that table because they feel the pain every day and explain what they think should happen in their nation, Southern Cameroons. For now, I consider most of us in the diaspora the voices of those who cannot speak for themselves because they don't have the freedom to, because they're afraid of the life. I'm sure there are thousands of women that are very qualified now living in Southern Cameroon. Some of them are refugees. Some of them are internally displaced, living in foreign La République du Cameroon, that will have that opportunity when the time comes to negotiate our terms of separation from La République du Cameroon, because that's what it will take. We intend to live as good neighbors and nothing more, nothing less.
All right, Dr. Patience. Before we let you go, I want to find out if perhaps the women are included in this negotiation and peacekeeping. What are the attributes that these women can bring to the fore? I mean, I'm sure that the IG are listening, the interim government, I'm sure that they are listening. They would want to know what extra things these women, your women, our mothers like you in diaspora speaking, for those that can't speak, what are these characteristics? What are these attributes? What are the necessities that they can bring to the table as women?
Thank you so much. So the reason that Resolution 1325 is so important is because it's believed that when women are part of peace processes, the resolutions are more to be adhered to. And you asked me a question of what are the attributes. Women are generally very patient and they are very nurturing and they see things, they try to see the whole picture. And because of that perspective, they have that capability of being there and brokering peace between people that may not want to talk to each other. Secondly, we have women that are experts in different fields. When it comes to time for negotiation, we will get these women that are experts. You may have women that are experts in our history, experts in legal issues, expert in humanitarian issues, expert in engineering and all the like, even in it has to even if in our resources and all the like. This fact that they have this expertise, they will bring that to the table and be part of the team, so that it's not going to be a team that sees only men who may not know what women need. And remember that the wars, we know that wars are created by men, but women tend to be the ones that suffer the most, women and children. So it makes no sense to have talks to solve problems without including those who suffer the most from conflicts. But I want to go back to make one final talk about Team Ambazonia, because I really think that this topic on women is so broad that I am hoping that you plan one day to have us come to your ABC and talk about it with other women. I was mentioned in the names of other groups that were in Team Ambazonia. You had Maurice, which Barrister mentioned, which is called Movement for the Resolution of the Independence of Southern Cameroons. Maurice is nowhere to be seen today. You have Republic of Ambazonia Nationalists, RUAN. What do they do? No one knows. You have Southern Cameroons Congress of the People, SCOOP. What do they do? No one knows. You have Republic of Ambazonia, RUA. What did they do? No one knows. And you have Southern Cameroon's Restoration Movement, SCAM. What did they do? No one knows. And I forgot SCNC. Now, SCNC has done a lot in the history of our liberation struggle. But most recently, the leader that we know as Cometa was mainly involved in getting asylum for Cameroonians, including people from La République du Cameroon, and the resources, the money that he got from all these fees. Who knows what happened to that money? See, that's the difference between the IG and these groups, because the IG is the IG is very transparent. When we do fundraising, you know exactly what the money is for, what it's used for. So I'm not going to take too much of your time. From all these groups, some of them have left. Scope left, AIPC left, and AIC left. I mean, ROA left. So there were 6 remaining, including the IG. Now they claim that the IG has been kicked. Let me ask you a question. And believe me, HG knows about this, which is a facilitator, and the Swiss government, the mediator, knows about it. That without the interim government, there will be no Team Ambazonia. That is just a fact. Because remember that La République can only come to the table because we are resisting La République. We are doing a lot on the ground. All of these groups are not doing anything on the ground. So for them to think that they can go far without the interim government, it's a sham. It will not work. But I have challenged them. I've told them that the easiest way for us to partner, because if you think about the people and not about yourself or your political ambitions, the for all of them to join their local government or county. Can you imagine if every person that is in Team Ambazonia, from all the groups that I've mentioned, if they were to join their local government and work within the system, we will be going on the table this year. And that's the challenge that I sent out to everybody listening that is a member of Team Ambazonia. Join your local government, your counties, and work within the structure to liberate your people. Thank you so much, my dear sisters.
Thank you so much for that very wonderful
analysis there. That was really, really detailed. Thank you so much. It's nice to always have you here. And like you say, we'll try to really get you on the show next time to talk more on the women as, major keys and major factors to mediation or negotiation processes. Would you like to add to that?
Now we move on with the news. We have seen for 6 years encountering the resilience of the home front, the emergence and excellence of the Ambazonian restoration forces.
In fact, home front resistance is no doubt being a catalyst of the Swiss-led mediation process. In spite of the collateral damages, La République du Cameroon is still lingering to meet Ambazonia at the negotiation table. The question would be why? Why the lingering? We'll hope to get the opinion of Barrister Timothy Mbesea and Tapadi King on this, that's if they're still here.
Yes, I'm still here. But before I address the particular issue, let me just say something about the women that Madame Abiede said. Say the women we refer to are not just university professors, teachers, and these people sitting in high offices. In our struggle, the women have two roles to play, and they are playing right now. The public face of this struggle is borne by the women. Take, for example, in Akwaya, if you take those pictures, I see a woman lying down and rolling with her baby on her chest, dead or alive. That has a lot of impact, a very big impact. Unlike me, a man jumping up and lying down too. No. When they see mommy happy, that old mother, that has a lot of impact on the people. But fast forward on the negotiations. We don't know what will happen, but this is what it is. We can imagine. Presently, the IG is an IG of institutions. Some of the most powerful institutions of the IG are headed by women. Madame Abiede, who was talking there, is a member of the Team Act. I'm not even a member. She's a woman. Why do you think that they will not be there? They will be there. The interim house of representatives is headed by a woman. Why shall we leave them out? They will be there. Some of the most powerful cabinet positions are handled by women. I don't need to go far to tell you about the treasury, resource mobilization. They are handled by women.
These
So
are the
there's no reason
facts,
for
yeah.
us to think or believe that women are going to be left out. They are going to be
Yes,
there. They are already there. If we have
these are
10 negotiators on the table, I would rather stay home and let women represent me because they will make the case better than me going there. So let us be
these are
convinced that
facts.
going
These are
forward,
facts.
the the women will have a role to play a role, and they will have a bigger role to play as we move forward. So I don't know what was the next question.
Yes, why the Cameroons, La République du Cameroon, why they are lingering to come to the negotiation table? Why are they? Why is La République du Cameroon lingering to come to the negotiation table? Why
This
is
is
that?
the reason, simple reason. All the all the stakeholders, those interested, the United States, the United Nations, they have said one key word: go to the negotiation table and address the root causes of the problem. We all know the root causes of the problem. The Republic knows the root causes of the problem. They don't have an answer for what we would say. For example, when we say that they annexed us, can they deny it? No. Yes, we voted, we had manifested our intention in them. But when the moment came for joining, that is at the passing of Resolution
I believe
1608,
Comrade M was
British
not
Southern
there
Government was
when
not even
he
at the
was.
United Nations. They were there. They voted against it. If they say we are not prepared to join with Anglos as they call us, what power did the United Nations have to force them to join with us? So that is annexation. They were forced to annex us. They have no response for that particular question. When we say that, okay, after annexing us on the pretext of a federation, you destroy all our own institutions instead of allowing them to live side by side and federate with you. Would they have an answer? They have no answer. They abolished the Southern Cameroon House of Assembly. They abolished marketing board. They killed everything, not just killing it for the interest of the people. They stole the money. So they are so reluctant because, like I said, I mean, you're all women there. If you are in a bad marriage and your husband is guilty or you are guilty, you don't want a third party to come and settle the dispute. Because when they come to settle the dispute, you will tell the story of how your husband does not give you sword. He doesn't even give oil. Then sympathizer who came there will say, but how do you even live without salt in your own house? How do you cook? On the side of the man or the woman, if you have such a bad woman who brings her boyfriend to the house, for example, she will not want the pistol because when they tell that story, the other woman will even shame her. How do you do this even to your own husband? So that is why they are so reluctant because they know that even those who come to that negotiation table as observers are coming with the hope that they will try to convince us to go with them in one form or the other. But when they hear our story, they'll be asking us, how did you endure this for so long? You were so patient. You should not even have endured this nonsense for 50 years. That's the only reason why they don't want to go to a negotiation table. That's the only reason, basically.
I see. So
Because they
now
have
we talk.
no justification or anything. Thank you.
All right, and we have Mr. Tar, who is here. I'm sure that he has a thing or two to also say and contribute to this issue of negotiation. Mr. Tar,
Yes, can you hear me?
yes, loud and clear. Go ahead.
Actually, the Zoom, the town hall is already beginning, and we have heard what the panelists have all said. Those who are watching on Facebook and on YouTube, you can go to any of the platforms and make sure that you connect connect with the Zoom link. The president is already locked in. Connect and make sure that you participate. Yeah, very briefly. I think I'll talk only about Bo Hebet, and I would advise that you guys end the program now. We've exceeded our time. Um, like Barrister T mentioned, Comrade Bo is mainly a journalist. And I think that when it comes to stakes, perhaps if they need somebody to communicate, he can communicate. But when it comes to triggers the international community to what triggers the international community to call for negotiations, he really does not have any stakes on the ground, and therefore cannot make dictates. It is not in his capacity, either as an activist or a voice in the struggle, to make dictates when the interim government is concerned. He has benefited from the president's sagesse. He has benefited from the president's openness and wisdom. He has benefited on a lot of things in that regard, and that's why he was a member of the act. And I just want to say something. There's a lot of controversy and hypocrisy and folly involved in Bo Herbert's attempt of making the statement he made on Twitter. You cannot say that somebody boycotts his child. The interim government, like we said, ACT is the brainchild of President Sako. And so the only thing that can happen is for President Sako to dissolve that body, not be eliminated or be evicted or be ejected by individuals who group themselves in their homes, in their families, with their wives and kids, and then all of a sudden they call themselves groups. So that is really not feasible. Like I mentioned, the meeting is already starting right now, and therefore we should round off in a couple of minutes because I'll be joining the Zoom link and we'll be streaming. Thank you all very much for joining in and doing what you're doing. For those watching on Facebook, thank you for being fervent and sharing. Right now, I'll call on all of you to log into the Zoom. The president is there, and the meeting is about to start. Thank you. Good night.
with that report, we have come to the end of Undaunted tonight.
Today we looked at the Akwaya massacre. La République du Cameroon's government apportions crime on separatist fighters. The Ambazonian National Self-Defense Council squarely informs the national and international of the culprits of the carnage in Banten, Mbosa, and Yelum. The act, that is, the brainchild of President Sako, only shows how the People's Interim Government is building strategic collaboration with other frontline movements. Today we look at the act, that is, the Ambazonian coalition team towards the Swiss-led process, dialogue and negotiations. What is Ambazonia historical and legal bearings ahead of the Swiss-led mediation process is the question we answered today.
Today we looked at the women, the liberation movement, and the role of the woman in the negotiations process. What is the role of the Amba woman in this liberation? Firepower and self-defense are catalysts for the negotiations. Who is hitting the ground hard? What more is needed to hasten or enhance this process in terms of home front resistance? Today, we told you why the People's IG is stronger than ever. And that was it for Undaunted tonight, bringing it to the news and told stories. On behalf of Michael Anchor Stir Smart and the entire Undaunted crew, we say thank you for tuning in. I am Onyi Okpala.
We'll leave you with ABC Amba TV images. Good night and God bless you.